Well, at least for the second time, when I tried to wear the colors of both teams, the normal rules of physics prevailed. The color on the outside enveloped the color on the inside. That's just the way it goes. In this case, it was purple. Desperately needed win for Kolkata. 5 losses on the trot. They had to start winning. It didn't matter who the opposition were, how good they've been in this tournament so far, and they did the job after Rajasthan had posted what looked like a subpar total. They still had to do it. They were not good at the halfway point. 59 after 10 overs, and then they started stepping on the gas. And the best news of all for Kolkata, yes, Nitish Rana, familiar name up there, but the second name on that scorecard. 42 of 23, which in previous years would probably have been Andre Russell walking in and finishing a game. Andre Russell sat, watched, and watched the team win. And I think that was fabulous news for Kolkata. They've kept faith with Rinku Singh. He's been an outstanding fielder. Today, he did much more than that. Here on Cricbuzz Live, wrapping up the entire game, trying to see what went right for Kolkata and what went wrong for Rajasthan. I'm joined by Pommie Mbangwa and Joy Bhattacharya. Pommie, I'll come to you. You were sticking by the fact that you didn't think they'd get there in the end. But I think that little period between the 11th and the 13th changed all the fortunes.
Yeah, and we did say at the halfway stage it depended very much on it, how they play those two spinners in that period. And what happened, I think, was a case of you get to a point and it's a point of no return, no choices. There's only one way. Whoever comes on, you've got to attack them, because if you don't attack them, then effectively you're out of the game and you've left too much to do at the back end. They attacked and they were successful. And things went along beautifully, even after losing the wicket. And then Rinku Singh comes in. He comes in, and it's at a point where he must try and kind of stay in the ascendancy, so to speak, go with the partnership that had gone before. And he managed to get away. And once that happened, there really was no stopping him. It was the spinners I thought were going to be the difference. And if they didn't manage to break the partnerships, if they didn't manage to take the wickets, then I couldn't see how the seamers would do it, because all the batters down at the bottom would prefer the seam and would have been able to kind of work the ball around anyway. Even if it went up to 10s and 11s, it's pretty difficult to stop sides when somebody gets in.
Yeah, and that's what they did. They got in 12 and over in that back five without any wickets being lost. I think a combination of those two sets of numbers did the job. There you are, 51 without loss in that segment without losing any wickets when they were chasing, having just lost 3 before that. Was what told the story. Russell didn't come in, Narayan didn't come in. These guys did the job for them. At the very start, we were talking about the McCullum way, that he'd almost like being pushed to a wall and having a few unknown quantities to do the job with him. And that's exactly what happened, Joy. Rinku Singh, of course, he's been on the fringe. Of course, we know his domestic credentials. But to do it in a run chase, in a must-win game, that'll do him great and it'll do Kolkata great.
Yeah, absolutely. And what he did very well was he took the pressure off, it was an unfortunate dismissal. Shreyas Iyer, that's the kind of dismissal you never want to see in a game for any batsman, because it's just, one of those tickles that goes down. But what he did was he took out the pressure of Nitish Rana. And I think that's what Kolkata did very well today that they normally don't do, partnerships. So what happens? Shreyas Iyer's batting, the spinners come on. Who takes on the spinners? It's Nitish Rana. Nitish Rana takes on the spinners, takes 14 off and over of Ashwin, takes the pressure off them. And see, it's like, look at this partnership. Nitish Rana is a dominant man out here. Shreyas is barely scoring at 100. But what he's done out there is take the pressure of Shreyas and put it there. And exactly the next partnership, what happens? It's Rinku Singh who takes the risk and takes the pressure off Nitish Rana. And I think that's what Kolkata did really well. It's a case study in what partnerships do. In one person taking the risks, he's got a couple of hits on the bat. He says that, okay, I'm feeling it well today. I'm going to take the chances. You relax. You push the ball around, get me the strike. Let me go for it. And it worked very well for Kolkata. I think this is a case study in how Kolkata should chase. And I'm really glad that they managed to get it across this time.
Yeah, the
big thing. Yeah, the big thing, I think, also, in a side that's been losing a lot, you turn up against a high-flying side in the season. And if we're to put bowling attacks up and say which ones are the best ones, Rajasthan Royals bowling lineup, bowling attack would be one of those who are sort of contending for being the best in the tournament. So as a Kolkata side that turns up with batting woes and has to chase what is a middling total on a pitch that perhaps is a little bit on the tricky side, because for their batting lineup, the Rajasthan Royals to only get 152 means a combination of really good bowling, but also, not quite going so well as far as the surface is concerned, because their batters are in form. So to win against this side, against this bowling lineup, with woes in the batting that haven't gone so well, I think it's so important from them from a confidence boost perspective, and from something that sort of comes that says, well, what can we take from here, and can we take it and run with it as we go to the rest of the tournament? I think you can, because it had to be a good performance against these good bowlers.
Yes, there was Nitish Rana, there was Shreyas Iyer, the captain. There were the bowlers who set it up to the extent of it not being too high a total, but the individual who really stood out and would be our Omnigel relief and recovery performer of the match has to be Rinku Singh. Omnigel, India's #1 pain recovery gel brand, not only gives quick relief, but also recovery from pain. No dard for fans, and I can promise you something, there has been a bit of dard in the last 5 games. Now, that has totally been erased by none other than a combination of Omnigel and Rinku Singh Joy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'm so delighted the way Rinku Singh played. I mean, he took the chances, especially around the off stump, went over the top and just gave, as I said, we were talking about Nitish Rana, took the pressure of Nitish Rana. What I really liked about him was, even when there was a couple of chances which almost went to hand, he knew he was the one who had to go for it. And, that 6 off square leg, he has the gift of timing. And anyone who bats and averages over 16 first-class cricket is something. He bats at number 4 for Uttar Pradesh and has been a very consistent batsman. He's just not made it to the big stage. And of course, the IPL is the big stage. But that's the point, that he's got his chances. In the last 2 chances, he's shown what he can do. And I go back to that point once again, that I believe that McCullum is a fantastic coach for young and upcoming talent, because fearless, young, upcoming talent is what McCullum works with best. And I think he's just beginning to see the kind of players that he enjoys working with. And look, we won't know where KKR will end up given everything that's happening and the fact that they still have a lot of way to make up still. But I think these are good days for them.
Yeah, you have to have a starting point. Rinku Singh also contributed in the field. He does that every single time. But for me, in a game where you've got the artist Sanju Samson, the bludgeoner and Joss Butler, you've got people like Andre Russell around. Fine, he didn't get to bat. The shot of the game belonged also to Rinku Singh. There was Kuldeep Sen, the fastest bowler of the match. And he just,
I know which one you're going with.
He just flick bunted him over for 6.
Yeah, pretty impressive shot. And I suppose what that shows you is a bit of flair. I mean, he can play. I mean, and I know people won't have seen it in IPL, but he can play. As Joy says, the guy's got a pretty decent, more than decent first class and list A record, and he's been around a long time. It just hasn't, they've sort of not found a way to fit him into the side, into the batting lineup. And that's because, I suppose, the preferred names in exactly what you're saying, in a situation here where if you put a hat and kind of had names pulled out to say, who is it who's going to be the player of the match or the performer of the match in a game that involves all of these, it's hardly ever that you're going to pick out his name. But give the guy a chance. And I think that's essentially what's got to happen for the Kolkata Knight Riders. We said right now, if you're still trying to figure out who your 11 are, it's going to be pretty difficult, because it means then you're not giving anybody any sort of run to allow them to grow into whatever their role is and to figure it out and then deliver. And I hope this is a little insight into what he can do, and then buys him the time that he can be placed into that side to come and play roles like this to try and finish, not necessarily just finish, because he can come in a bit earlier and build and then kind of explode at the end. It gives them a cushion, especially knowing that they have an Andre Russell sitting in the bank as well.
Well, for now, it's a comfortable cushion. Time for him to celebrate because he is our Omnigel relief and recovery performer of the match. Rinku Singh. Many kudos to him. On the other side, from purple to pink, while everything might have been going so well at the start, suddenly, Joy, you're finding back to back losses. And that's something with this outfit, with their form, with Butler going the way he's going and the way the bowling unit's been bowling, that will be a bit of a dent in, for them.
Yeah, A, that B is that, they would also be looking at it and they'd be saying that they lost to sides number 8 and number 10 on the table. And that's one thing they look at. Of course, it's, that's also a vast generalization considering that the sides for Mumbai and Kolkata who were, before the tournament regarded as formidable sides. So it is not that, but they would be looking at a couple of things and wondering what they're doing. Perhaps they're bowling. Look, today Dew was a factor. Dew definitely was a factor. And up front, Sanju Samson said, perhaps I'll start to win a few tosses in a row after this because he's just been losing tosses, and they've been finding ways to win. But yes, they have a bit of a problem. If there's Dew at the end and their spinners are not that effective, and Bolt is not getting an early wicket, then they're in a bit of trouble. And yes, it is a whole set of circumstances. Part of it is luck, part of it is winning the toss, but they will be asking themselves questions in the dressing room. The only thing is that there's nobody there you can turn around and look at and say that, this guy didn't perform at all. I mean, they can look at Karun Nair and say 15 or 15 balls. Is that what he needed to do for us? I think they just needed to give him a slightly longer rope because, they've given Mitchell a bit of a chance. They should give him a bit of a chance and see where it goes. But this bowling lineup is as good as they can get. And they have to just say that, perhaps we'll win a few tosses, we'll win a few games. And Butler's just had a bit of a sort of, not a full stop, but a semicolon. And he'll be back playing the next match probably.
But I'll throw one more factor into it. And this is something briefly we chatted with, Pommie and I chatted off air. And yes, let's assume they lost a toss. Let's assume they are batting first, not the preferred option. Now, where you are at the stage when Butler's got out, Pommie, I'll throw it at you. Would Shimron Hetmeyer have come a little bit earlier?
Yeah, shoulda, coulda, woulda. It's one of those. So, and the reason I say it's one of those is because, there's a tendency in sides that are winning to kind of go along. The ones that innovate whilst that's going on kind of stretch further and further away from everybody. I think with the way that he's going, it is necessary for them to think that they want him to face more balls. I think that's, any side where you have guys that are going particularly well, you want them to face more balls because you're going to get more runs. Today, it's a bit odd actually, and perhaps you could say a tale of two halves and two pitches because of the Jew that Joy speaks about. But also, I don't know if their approach, the Rajasthan Royals, needs to shift a bit in that it is becoming imperative as we go further into the tournament that you start off quite well in your first 6. You can no longer afford the luxury of sort of having a good look and then sort of going slowly-ish and then trying to quicken up as you go along. Because if you lose that new ball that will probably come on that bit more on the newer surface and won't grip as much, as it gets that bit older, it grips a bit more, and then you put the difficulty into the middle and people are trying to play shots with fielders outside the circle already. So maybe it requires a slight change in approach where they go that little bit harder up at the front. And yes, maybe Hetmeyer coming in earlier, and you delay your issues. If he doesn't get runs, there are the others who will do it, and we'll probably be then having a conversation. Oh, maybe we need him to go back to 5 because he does better there. But yeah, it's kind of chicken egg. You're going well, you think you'll just keep doing what you're doing. Then when things start going wrong, you want to shift and change it. If it's according to situation, if it's according to conditions, then fine, but not just for the sake of it.
Fair enough. But I mean, in this case, Sanju Samson said at the end of the game, 15 or 20 short is what we were, and probably a fair assessment, not necessarily a 190, 200 pitch, but if they could have put on close to 170 maybe, we saw that it could have been challenging for Kolkata. But at the end of the day, the bowlers kept it down, and Kolkata's efficient unit ended up getting them the 2 points. What it means is Kolkata know exactly what they have to do. There is no option for them. It's 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. For Rajasthan, it's slowly getting to that phase when they don't want to. I mean, they're still looking favourites to be in the top 4, Joy, but they don't want beyond this. 4 more matches to go, and obviously 4 wins takes them to 20, but they don't want any more slip-ups. They've had 2 in a row.
They've had 2 in a row, and they'd be looking at that and saying, and exactly that. This is the point that all teams slightly start to second guess themselves. Should we be batting Hetman slightly earlier, or should we just do one thing? Throw Riyan Parag in early at 4, and then see where it goes, and then bring in Hetman after that, and tell Riyan Parag to just go and whack at everything. And then, of course, my logic to that is give your best equipped batsman the most balls, and I still think Hetman is far sight ahead of Riyan Parag in that. So, they've been talking about this. They need to find a solution to it, and they need to have a Butler can fail situation properly laid out in front of them. That, okay, Butler cannot get runs for you in every match. If he fails or if he doesn't get off, and today was a failure. I mean, he got 25 runs, but it was off 25 balls. So this is not the Butler we know. And they've got to figure a solution for that. And they've got to figure a way to do this. I still feel that if their bowling is the best they can, it's the best they have. And that's actually good, because it doesn't need to, they don't need to guess themselves about the bowling. But on the batting order, I think there's serious work to be done there.
Well, let's just put it this way. We've had losing streaks at the very top. We saw what happened to Mumbai. We've had one in the middle, Kolkata, 5 in a row. There is no reason on earth why even the best team, Pommie, can't have a losing streak towards the end. And for Rajasthan, let's just say in theory, 1 out of 4 they win at the end, which is still not a huge losing streak. They finish on 14. They don't qualify.
Look, guys, every season, I think I say it here, every season, I say, no matter what the table looks like before we get there, which is the end of the round robin stage, we can do as many guesses as we like, but the pressure, that pressure of you are nearly there, every single season, it bites somebody. It doesn't matter which season we're looking at. Every single season we sit there, and admittedly before it's been 8 teams, and so the logjam has been, the potential for it has been that much higher. But I don't discount it this time. I reckon there'll be another logjam, and again we'll have net run rates and so forth, despite us seeing things earlier and going, oh, those ones might run away with it because they're going quite nice. Nah, it's not that simple. You just have to look at each team as they win their 2 points. And you kind of have panned to the dugout. Teams gone on a streak and won 3, 4 in a row. They win another 2 points and they go crazy for the 2 points. Why? Because they're not easy 2 points to get. So nothing is for granted. Doesn't matter where they are right now. It's where they end up. And it's going to be a real big dogfight for everybody. Even those that are close to the top still have to try and make sure they sort themselves out, because even after that, you don't really want to finish 4th, because if you finish 4th, who wins from 4th? Nobody wins from 4th, right? So there's still that to sort out after that. I love how this tournament goes, because every single time, without fail, we end up going, oh dear, this is good. Edge of our seat stuff. Who's it going to be? So yeah, I'm sort of not excusing anyone, not ruling anyone out, no matter how good they look on paper.
Yeah, I can tell you the only table that will look the same till the end of the season is my side table here. That's for sure. That's not going to change.
I just want to add something to what Pommie said. Do you know the origin of how round robin started? So the word round robin, how it started was that's, originally when they wanted to, workers or soldiers wanted to give a petition to their seniors that, they didn't... that they thought the seniors would not be particularly happy with, they'd all sign in a circle so that nobody's name is right at the top. Because otherwise, if your name is at the top, you're regarded as ringleader. Okay, so that's how the word round robin comes. You sign round robin formation. Everything is all round. It's a circle. It's not one name at the top. So exactly like that place at the top seems to be like a round robin as well. Yeah. You're going round and round and round and round, and you don't know who's going to come up the carousel and suddenly come up on top. And you look at it. Kolkata, this same Kolkata was 2-5 in 2014, won the next 9 games and won the tournament. So who knows what can happen from here?
Even though it's not a round table, unlike mine. That's fine.
Even though it's not a round table.
It still means it's going to be sticking around that way. This one is, that one isn't. Pommie said it. It is going to keep changing, just like retro reels will keep changing. That kind of trivia, those kind of facts, you'll either find stuck into one of his quiz questions or possibly on retro reels. So look out for that. If you enjoyed that little bit, again, it's just a teaser. He's very stingy with all his information. The only place Joy gives it all out is on retro reels. So get on Cricbuzz Plus, subscribe, and watch retro reels. The cricket, of course, continues unabated. And when we talk about tables, round or otherwise, there's no dispute about one team who are flying high. They're very much at the top of the table and looking to go even higher. When are they in action? Possibly next. Yes, indeed. This is what's coming up next on in the tournament. It's Gujarat. They are genuinely flying high. They're genuinely on the top of the table. It is going to take a lot of bizarre mathematics to see them not qualifying. They take on Punjab, who will need 2 points. And this is the time when we'll need to have results going against the grain. Gujarat against Punjab. This is from Navi Mumbai, the D.Y. Patil Stadium. Joy, I'll come straight to you on this one. For Punjab, who have sort of blown hot and cold, not for the first time in their lives, this is the time to blow hot. It's hot enough in Mumbai. They just need to absorb the heat and take it out in Gujarat.
Yeah, Punjab needs to just find some way to win, because this year they have an explosive squad. They've got some 200 top. They've looked really impressive up front. They've lost a few games they shouldn't have lost. And now they're in a situation where they're again fighting for survival. And this is exactly, what we call the Punjab conundrum. Somehow they find themselves in a position that they're going to lose again. They lost the last match against Lucknow by 20 runs, and 154 they were chasing, and they were just stuck up out there and they couldn't make it across the line. And that too with, a very, very explosive batting lineup. They're sitting in a situation where they've, Shah Rukh Khan has been dropped. They've got other players playing out there. They don't look completely settled out there, but given what Kolkata is doing, given the other moves in the table, they need a win desperately. They really need to win now.
It's unique things for every team. I mean, every team has different kinds of problems. I mean, even Gujarat has problems, but their only problem is that even when they try to lose, they end up winning. But for Punjab, Pommie, where do you think the problem lies at the moment? Because they haven't really gone on a big losing streak, but it's sort of been the roller coaster. WL, that's the kind of form they've had.
Yeah, first world problems for Gujarat and some others, but for Punjab, my thinking is that a crisis in confidence and a kind of in a quandary because of a sort of a hesitancy with regard to what approach they should use. Right at the start of the tournament, you looked at their side. Didn't matter who it was. You looked at it and you thought, power. You thought these guys are going to whack anyone out the park and it's going to be about power. That's what their side's going to be. And they started off in that fashion and would play that way. But then it lost wickets. And in losing wickets and losing their ways and then losing games, have kind of tried to go the same way a couple of times. And with it happening kind of one after the other, have then gone back and thought, maybe that's not the way we should be going. Should we kind of throttle back a little bit and kind of see where we get to? The throttling back hasn't really been throttling back. It's almost been a sort of go back into their shell. So from one extreme to the other and not really being in the middle. And where they've sort of come to the middle, it hasn't quite been enough, because there are players in their lineup who are explosive, who can whack boundaries, who then haven't got enough deliveries to face, and so have ended up kind of coming in and playing cameos, but leaving them with kind of middling scores rather than this thing that they had in their minds that they could bat teams out of a game. So to be at this point and still kind of trying to work that out, I think it's quite difficult. What to do? That's the question. Do they, with the way things stand now, and with it a scenario that says, look, you lose now, you're not leaving yourself much of a chance. Perhaps backs against the wall. You know what? We think this is our approach. We back this approach, and we're going to go down playing our way, which is to be ultra aggressive. Whatever happens, happens. Perhaps that's the way they'll go. And if they do, who knows? Perhaps they're going to run.
All right, so let's just wrap up our little Punjab segment by suggesting, do they need to do anything with their personnel? We know with a few other teams, it's about up and down. With some teams, it's about in and out, who's in, who's out. With Punjab, I don't think it's really in and out anymore because the 11 Joy seems to be fairly settled. It's just about maybe a Johnny Bairstow. I mean, you know he's class, but I'm feeling he's feeling a little left out even at number 3.
Yeah, look, I'm telling you, they just somebody needs to dash earlier. Their big problem is Mayank Agarwal is just not getting runs. As a captain, he's not getting runs. Even when he's getting start, he's not able to convert, then he's getting bogged down. Perhaps he gives himself up and says that Bairstow go up with Shikhar Dhawan and he bats at 3. I think they have to do some adjustment there because they have enough power in the top 6. And here's my problem. They need to tell themselves that their best bet is to smash teams in the next 3-4 matches. Because once the ball starts turning and it gets lower and slower, this is a batting heavy team. It's got Rabada, it's got Chahar, but this is not a great bowling team. This is a batting team. As Pommie said, they bat teams out of matches. And they just need to capitalize on whatever time they have now to do that. And I think they just need to, I would just move Bairstow in, put Mayank Agarwal at 3 and said, let's take our chances with this.
Yeah, Pommie, no better time than, they're not quite as Livingston-centric as maybe Rajasthan were Butler-centric, but not too far away either. So you've got Shikhar Dhawan, Mayank Agarwal, Johnny Bairstow, Bhanuka Rajapaksa, all of them contributing. Jitesh Sharma's been batting well. But yet it seems to be, not necessarily the runs. There just seems to be a mental thing that, okay, we have Livingston. When's he coming in? What's he going to do? There's an obsession with him, isn't there?
Not really. I don't think so. I mean, we might obsess. So we might, because we know he just hit 6s. But if you look through that order, Mayank Agarwal bats at a fair clip. Johnny Bairstow bats at a fair clip. Shikhar Dhawan bats at a fair clip. Jitesh Sharma, you could even, Bhanuka Rajapaksa whacks it for Sri Lanka. So it's not, I don't think it's a question of Livingston centric. I think it's more an issue of, they need to fully go out. As Joy says, with them being batting heavy, they can't afford for anyone to be batting as if there aren't any batters to come. And so despite the failures, I think they still must go all out. And going all out is not recklessness, but it's aggression, which we know they have in their game. And yes, it can be ultra aggressive, but they need to be, because all of them kind of play that way. And they might end up 117 all out. I don't know why I pick 117. It's a paltry score, right? But they might end up 117 all out. But you've got to back what you do. Because if you don't back what you do, you don't do the other thing. So you're going to end up with 147. What good is that? It's no good to anybody, especially when you have these batters who have these impressive strike rates. When you look at their record and you look down the right-hand side where it says strike rate column. So every single one, and it doesn't matter who you're naming, whether it's Shikhar Dhawan in the last 2 or 3 years, unbelievably good. Johnny Bairstow as an opener, really good. Mayank Agarwal, Rajapaksa, Livingston. So there you go. What else do you need? So what does that say? Play that way. Let's see what happens when you play that way. And if you succeed, I don't think there's a side that can hang with them. So yeah, they've got to go that way.
Well, you were close to the number that we were all thinking about, because on the one day they did go hard and it did go pear-shaped. They were 115 all out against Delhi. And of course, they had some 12 boundaries and all those aggressive players, but 115 is what they finished with. and Delhi
A,
finished
a violent 100.
a violent 115. We love
yeah.
that. That phrase is going to stick with me now. That genuinely was a violent 115. But when it comes to the opposition, who are at the top of the table, Joy, they're probably thinking now, as long as there's Miller and Tewatia, it doesn't matter what the opposition makes, doesn't matter who else the other 9 players are, we'll somehow win the game. God's
No,
on our side.
I think it's not them. It's each and every one of them, because if you have had 6 different man of the match winners and the 7th one has gone to somebody else from the other team, you've just handed it out. Every one of these guys has done something. I think the only thing they'd be bothered about is the fact that they need Shubman Gill to start sort of getting going again. I think the big thing that's happened to them is that because they were a bowling heavy side, they were still missing that additional fast bowler. Riddhiman at the top has just freed up Matthew Wade's position. He's a better keeper, which would give Rashid Khan a lot of happiness, given that Riddhiman's behind the stumps. And then what happens is you can play Alzari Joseph. And now with Lockie Ferguson, Shami and Alzari Joseph coming in, it's really batsmen have to look at it and wonder where they're going to go. And that is a really, really impressive bowling side. And Sangwan came in for Yash Dayal. Yash Dayal was bowling at 140, but Sangwan was equally impressive. Not so fast, but I thought he bowled beautifully in the last match. So it'll be, it's a problem of plenty that this team has right now, not a problem of, the other way around, who they need to replace. Rather, given that Yash Dayal bowled so well, do you bring him back or do you keep Sangwan in?
Yeah, it's just probably two positions, Pommie. One is Sangwan because of the Yash Dayal niggle. And if you think he's good enough, Sangwan's been around long enough to say that, yeah, you can have your place back. Sai Sudarshan. Now, there's been that toss-up between him and Abhinav Manohar, who also looked really good. Who would you go for? For some reason, they seem to be leaning towards Sudarshan.
Winning teams can blood others as well. As I said, first world problems, right? So do you think that you're kind of giving him enough of a go? You've been winning. Why would you get Sai Sudarshan out? Like if you've decided you want him to have a bit of a run, then you keep him in. Give him a bit of a run. See how he goes. Fail a couple of times, perhaps he gets a score somewhere along the line. And their side, and then on the bowling side, Pradeep Sangwan might keep his place. You don't get dropped necessarily because you've done badly. You get dropped because Yash Dayal's the incumbent, and if he's fit enough, they'll probably bring him back. If they don't think he's quite right, then Sangwan has another game. It's nice also because left arm, they've got just about everything, sort of bases covered, even though he's lesser pace. And what you'll get is, the opposition, once they've had to face Lockie Ferguson, Shami, and Alzari Joseph, they'll be coming after Pradeep Sangwan because he's the least of the pace there. So they know they can have their way with him. However, what happened last time, they thought they could, and he got a couple of wickets for not many runs. What's impressed me, like no end, because we didn't know what was going to happen in this scenario, is Hardik Pandya and the way that he's gone. The decisions with regard to where he bats, when he bats, he's not shied away from anything, because in looking at their batting lineup, we all would have looked and said they probably are a top order batter shy, a quality top order batter shy. You're looking around the traps, and I'll use an example, someone like Surya Kumar Yadav, right? And I know there's only one Surya Kumar Yadav, but a batter like that you would slot in, whether it's at 3 or it's at 4, he's filled the role, and he's filled it with aplomb. It's unbelievable what he's done, actually. And what he's shown, he's also done the same, I think, for David Miller, and said, no, you don't bash at the back end with your experience. You come up the order with your experience, and you and me will be the senior batters of this side, and we'll guide it through the middle, through the difficult parts. And should it be about whacking, we've got a few guys who can do that. In Tewatia, in Rashid Khan, he can also whack it. So there's no real problem there. I think that's been impressive, the fact that he's stood up to that and he's managed. He's also, I think he's still carrying that groin strain. not because he's not bowling, because when you watch him sort of not chase a ball in the field, he's putting himself out there, kind of taping himself together and getting out on the park and performing because he's the leader of the side. As an example, I think it's big too for the rest of the squad, because they'll know, they can see what's going on. They're aware that when it gets hit to the left of him and he has to chase it, he's not going to chase it. And he even hurt himself. I think he was taking a second or a third, and then had to kind of say, and I can't remember if he was batting with Ridhiman Saha, to say, no, listen, we can't just dash like that because I'm going to hurt myself, So yeah, I've been particularly impressed. I think he's done a great job to this point.
Yeah, well, that's lots of options that they have. If they look down that entire list, they could choose Dominic Drakes. If Dominic Drakes doesn't play, Ashish Nehra will come and bowl. Trust me, they'll have plenty of options.
And he'll be good.
And he'll be good as well. Joy, the one person in the lineup, or the one item in the lineup that we still haven't unraveled, we've done pretty much everything on the show, is your Joy Factor question. That was quite an intriguing one today.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think I played around a bit. Stadium named after Bharat Ratna. First ever international was by a player currently with the Rajasthan franchise. Named the stadium. Well, the player was Shimron Hetman. Surprisingly, and that was to put you off because you'd probably think it's an Indian player. It's the Dr. Bhupen Hazarika Cricket Stadium in Barsapara in Guwahati, and it's a terrific stadium. But yeah, Shimron Hetman was scored the first international ton out there. It was quite an innings.
Yeah, interesting. I was starting to think of Atal Bihari
Lucknow, yes, exactly.
Stadium in Lucknow, where I covered the first international test series there, which was West Indies against Afghanistan, of all people. And that could have been one of the answers, where maybe a Remanullah Gurbaz could have scored some runs. He's in one of the squads. In fact, he's in the Gujarat squad and not getting a chance to play. So there you have it. But who spotted that one? Well done. That's a fascinating answer, fascinating question. And our winner is Utkarsh Tyagi, Utkarsh Talk 99. Well done. We're getting more and more hardcore quizzes in there. And that's our answer, which we have managed to wrap up just before midnight. So I don't have to say we're going to see you later today. I can actually say we will see you tomorrow. We will be there for the next game. That is going to be to see if Gujarat can go even higher. Can Punjab start to claw back? It's going to be a big one. Thank you, Pommie. Thank you, Joy. And thank you all for joining us on Cricbuzz Live. We shall see you tomorrow.